How's it hanging, dudes? How's it hanging, dudettes? My name is Shawn, and wow, Jimmy Dore just dropped the ball big time. He is literally gaslighting the American people by allowing this buffoon to spout this Chinese propaganda. That's what he's doing. I'm not going to make any amends for it. I'll let you guys watch the video yourself. I will, take out some of the best clips and let you guys listen to it. I will link the video in the description. Go and watch it for yourself. Look at Jimmy Dore. 97%, 99%, 97% like ratio, 45%.
So let
the
me
reason
ask
why is because should America aspire to be more like China with Danny Haiphong? Now, you would think Jimmy Dore would push back on him and say, no, we shouldn't be, right? But no, he lets Danny Haiphong spout a bunch of Chinese propaganda, not Falun Gong propaganda, actual Chinese propaganda to the American people, and Jimmy Dore allows him to. Jimmy Dore allows him to, doesn't ever push back on the homelessness in China. He literally says China has completely eradicated homelessness. It's a complete lie. There's millions of videos out there we can look. I'll show you some videos here in just a second. Just the Telegraph in UK, not American media, UK media did a quick 60-second synopsis of the human rights violations just within the past 60, 70 years of China. Not even the past decade. Let's not even get into Hong Kong. Let's not even get into the Uyghurs, and let's not even get into all of the Africans and African native born people, or even just black people who wasn't native born, being evicted in China's out of China's country. They're being put on the street, literally making black people homeless because of what? Because they're black. That's right. There's so many things going on with China right now. It goes on to talk about this guy goes on to talk about how China does have political parties, and people don't really understand that. You see, China does have political parties. It's just that the Communist Party just happens to be the dominant party. It just not just happens to be the dominant party. All the parties are controlled opposition parties. They're there to lose. They're made to lose. That's the reason why they don't have any power. Why do you think they have no power? Because they're not allowed to have power. What are you talking about, man? It's the same thing as saying, well, there are third parties in America. What are you talking about? Of course it's a multi-party system. No, it's not. It's a duopoly. It's a two-party system. Just because there's third parties doesn't mean that they have an impact. So I don't know. Before I get into ranting, because there's going to be plenty of that, I just want to play the video for you guys. And I'll let you guys think about, I'll prove to you that China is not the bastion of progressivism that this guy claims. He's claiming that China is progressive. Oh my God. All right, look at this dislike to dislike ratio. Let's just go ahead and play the clip.
So let me ask you one more question before I let you go, because you brought this up when you were on the show the last time, and a lot of people got upset about it. Mm-hmm. You were just in China, and you were talking about the responsiveness of the Chinese political system to the actual needs of their people, and you were saying that it was very responsive, unlike our system here in the United States, whereas we're seeing play out right now. We're in an unbelievable crisis, and the ruling elite get together, and they start passing laws that have no help to the people who are in crisis, right? So but in China, you say that wouldn't happen. Now, a lot of people are like, what, are you crazy? That's a fascist government. There's no freedom. There's no liberty. And so what do you say to that? Of course, there's no freedom and no liberty, but are they responsible or responsive to, are their leaders responsive to their citizens? And if so, why?
And I would say that, the conception of liberty and freedoms in the Western sense are so limited, because those freedoms and liberties are always narrowly applied to private capital and the capitalist class. It's their freedoms to exploit. It's their freedoms to allow you to vote for whatever political party is going to oppress you for the next 2 years, right, 4 years, whatever.
Sorry, after going through this, guys, I have to say that the rant at the end of this video is not going to be sufficient, and me editing down just what he's saying doesn't really give you the full picture of the craziness of what this guy is saying. So I had to jump in here, and I'm sorry, but every once in a while we will be pausing just to decipher what he says. So let's pause. I guess this is a perfect place to pause, right? Yes, our system is set up to allow us to pick from two oppressive groups. That means China has just went that one step further and consolidated those two groups into one power dynamic. But wait, if that's a good thing, maybe we should have one party and never allow for people like Ralph Nader or Bernie Sanders or Andrew Yang to run as outsiders. I'm sure, China has the equivalent of those type of people, right? I'm sure they do. Sure they do.
And so, but more concretely to China, I think that when you have a political system that's led by the Communist Party, but it is a socialist political system that follows a plan and that actually does hold elections. People don't understand that there are multiple political parties in China. It's just the Communist Party is in the lead. What you had in China in 1949 was a revolution.
Can I just stop you there for a second? So I thought it was one party rule. You're saying there's multiple political parties in China?
There are multiple political parties that make up the state council in China. It's that the Communist Party is what is known as the vanguard party. And so that party is unquestionably the most influential over mostly educational affairs and in terms of guiding policy. But there are multiple political parties in China. There are right-wingers in China. I mean, you can go to China and meet them. They're not so pleasant. But they don't hold power. So one thing that China really pays attention to is to the fact of economic rights.
Oh, yes, I'm sure those parties are just, they just have so much power. They must win elections all the time. I wonder why they never get a change of hands in that same power. It must be my feeble mind can't cope with how loved the Chinese Communist Party actually is, right? No power, but, the economy, duh. The economic rights trumps all over rights. You know what I'm saying? Oh, silly old Shawn. Come on, dude.
So bourgeois political rights are not really something that much of China and much of the population really wants. They had bourgeois political rights prior to the 1949 revolution, and that led to the deaths of tens of millions of peasants and to the utter poverty of most of the population, where the life expectancy was 35 years of age. Not something that people in China want to go back to.
Oh, this one really gets me. Bourgeois political freedoms? Wait, so having political choices is bougie? I hate to tell you guys, but we are all just so rotten and spoiled with all of our fancy elections. Let's just take them away, huh? Right, Danny? I mean, why haven't we died from all of this? All these bougie political choices, right? Yeah, bougie political freedoms is what caused so many people to die. He's referring to Tiananmen Square, where they were fighting for their freedoms, and then one of the guys got ran over. The turmoil he's talking about was by the party's rise to power. They don't want to go back to that, do they? No, of course they don't. This guy is fucking full of shit, man.
After the revolution, with the Communist Party in the lead, what you've had is a decrease in poverty, especially absolute poverty, which as of this year has been eradicated. You have no homelessness in China. You have the right to a job in China. So even the migrant workers, which everyone wants to talk about as being super exploited, most of them are peasants who own land. They come to the cities, they work, they make a higher wage, then they go back for part of the year to live with their families on land that they own.
No. On paper, maybe, but these peasants do not own their land, because guess what? The Chinese Communist Party tells them what to grow, they tell them what to yield, they tell them how much they're going to pay for it, they tell them how it's going to be sold, they tell them how much to do, and if the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, actually wanted to, they could just take the land for themselves and give it to another peasant to do that, without any civil court hearings whatsoever. These peasant landowners are peasants for a reason. Here, landowners are wealthy, but it's so not a better system, right? Yeah. A lot of these homegrown landowners are. Some of them are monopolies. A lot of them are. But at least we have some sort of recourse, a way to curb some of these monopolies. We have laws on the books. Yeah, a lot of our politicians don't want to fucking activate a lot of those laws, but at least we have the power to actually put politicians in power who will. If the Chinese didn't want to do that, then they wouldn't. There's a reason why those people are peasants. The reason why they are poor. You know what I mean? If you buy a plot of land here and you farm it, you could make all the money from that. It's just, this guy is so in his own bubble with China. It's obnoxious almost.
So the commanding heights of the economy in China are nationalized. They are property of the state. So here in the United States, where we have big monopolies owning the energy sector, owning the healthcare sector, owning all sectors of society that basically take care of our needs, in China, those things are owned by the state. And those things are available to the entire population. In China's initiatives, its government is primarily interested in how do you extend economic rights to everyone in a situation where just 70 years ago, you were one of the most poorest countries in the world that was being throttled by foreign powers. A scenario that continues to this day. It's just the difference is that working people, instead of being the oppressed and exploited class, are now the ruling class in China. They actually have the most influence over society. It's just not the influence that we're used to in the United States.
So
here, we're used to having political power by voting and being on the outside of the state. In China, the state answers to the people, or there's massive reforms, and there's been massive reforms that have happened in the past in China. There's been leadership changes. Okay. There are executives. There are Communist Party leaders who are banished all of the time at the local, all the way up to the state council level. That is the relationship of the people to the party in China. That's the relationship of the people to the state, and you really do see it if you go there. You really do see it if you spend some time there, and if you just see.
Oh, okay. So there's been massive reforms. If there's been massive reforms, then why haven't they reformed for Hong Kong? There's huge protests there, right? And just because they replaced one shitty turd with another one from their same party does not mean that they had a change of power. That they've got rid of this person because the people demanded it. They have economic rights. Excuse me, what are you talking about? I mean, so you're telling me that the people literally have to revolt. They have to revolt to get any change in any sort of way. That's big wins there, man. That's big wins. They can't just, file a court hearing and have a just and due process. They can't have that? That's not a thing? No, of course it's not. Of course it's not. But, it must be really easy to try to end poverty and help climate change when you have total control of all of your people. And he goes on to say a lot of really, really, really weird stuff like, China isn't bombing people. They're not running over the world. They're trying, like America is what he's trying to say. But they're worried about how to end poverty and how to blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, sure. And guess what? If they were in our shoes, you're right. They wouldn't bomb people. They wouldn't bomb people at all. They would just blitzkrieg them. They just take them all over. They would just take them over because they're in our position, right? The only people stopping them from doing shit like that is us. And if you don't believe it, well, then you're just insane. Because guess what? The only people stopping us from doing that to them is probably Russia and China together as a big faction. You know what I mean? And also that we have actual freedoms. Whether you like it or not, America is not the best. It's not the best. You know what I mean? But it's better than what we have right now. It just is. It's better than what we've got right now. It's a really crappy system, but to pretend like China's system is so much better. Okay, sure. Say something bad about Xi Jinping if you want to. Draw Winnie the Pooh, you fucking idiot. Man, I'm just gonna let you play the rest of this clip out, and then you guys can catch the rant at the end.
What China is doing around the world, it's not bombing other countries. It's not talking about how private capital needs to be worshipped and how the market is the best thing in the world. It's talking about, well, how do we expand things like anti-poverty initiatives? How do we work with other countries on a win-win basis? How do we alleviate climate change and eradicate it altogether? If you go to China, you'll see the complete investment in renewable energy to a degree I've never seen anywhere else in the world. And actually, it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world because China leads in that sector. They lead in infrastructure like high-speed rail. And it's because working people are actually in charge. Those things could not be possible if working people were in charge. There's no interest for capitalists to invest trillions of dollars in things like roads, bridges, high-speed rail, which primarily benefit working people. They don't benefit investors at all.
I was always under the impression that, China's this horrible one-party rule. They get to you get to have an election, but they get to choose who the people are that you get to vote for. You don't get to choose, and things of that nature. And of course, they don't have internet, right? Everything's censored over there. You live in a completely censored state, totalitarian. Would you consider it a total? I mean, so I guess you're making it sound like Denmark when a lot of people think it's like the Gulag. So people are having a hard time when you come here and say how great their form of government is and how responsive it is to the people, and we say that they can't even do a Google search. Do you see the disconnect, right, where people can't square that circle?
Well, it's very different from Denmark in a lot of ways because Denmark is not led by a vanguard party that represents a large portion of its population. The Communist Party in China is 90 million deep. I mean, that is a large portion of the general population in China of 1.4 billion. And in China, the censorship, all of these issues when it comes to the framing of China as an authoritarian state, don't usually consider the fact that China right now is under siege by imperialism. That hasn't changed despite the fact that it's the second largest economy in the world, that it has advanced to a degree where it can compete on the world stage economically. It is still the case that China is a developing country, and it's one that continues to be surrounded along its borders and in the Pacific by the U.S.'s pivot to Asia. It is constantly being meddled with internally. There are CIA agents that run all up and down China trying to overthrow the government. There is a right wing in China that wants to overthrow the government. It's tiny. It's dispossessed of any kind of political power at the state level, but it exists and it wants to create problems. You have cult followings like the Falun Gong, which here in the United States run ads all the time in the New York Times, and they're directly funded by the NED and other organizations of the state that they're far-right fascists that want to overthrow the Communist Party rule in China because they see the Communist Party as completely antithetical to their interests in turning China into another playground of the capitalist class. In China, that's not the case. People like to think it is. They like to think that here in the United States and the West, they think China is this playground of the capitalist class. But in fact, the state is in command of society, and that command is led by a Communist Party, which is dedicated to a plan that meets markers for the people first and their economic rights. And all growth, economic and political, that happens has to follow that plan, or there's real struggle and consequences. And you see that right now in China, where the president, Xi Jinping, has waged a really deep anti-corruption campaign, which is seeking to root out these capitalist-minded folks who have been running away with profits at the expense of the plan. You don't have that here, right? You don't have people being punished at the level of the government for doing wrong towards the people, and that's the difference, right? There's an academic, Eric Lee, who talks about it, who was interviewed by John Pilger in his documentary, The War on China, and he said, the difference between the United States and China is that in China, the government is in command over the market. The market does not control government policy. And in the United States, the market controls all government policy. That's the difference. And
Wow,
you can really do see it when you have a scenario where, unlike in China, where wages have been increasing for all workers by like 10%, by an average of about 10% over the last 40 years, in the United States, it's been the exact opposite. In the European world, it's been the exact opposite. And why is that? But people don't want to ask these questions because there's so much racist vitriol that's thrown at China. It's considered this yellow peril authoritarian regime that deserves every single act of war thrown at it. But in reality, China's political principles, what it's promoting, regardless of whether you think it's being applied correctly or not, a lot of people have their own theories and ideas, are things that we should be aspiring to. Win-win cooperation, a multipolar world where there's more than one nation calling the shots around the world. The idea of a Belt and Road Initiative where all countries are working together on the basis of development that focuses on the poorest countries first and gets everybody up to a level where people's needs are met and that people can live in a prosperous way. All those things are things that I think progressives like, and the idea that climate change is the biggest existential threat to humanity. That's what China goes to the UN and says all the damn time. If you just read what their representatives are talking about.
But then people would say, yeah, but they have the worst pollution. They're still building coal plants, things like that, right?
They would say that, but China does not have the worst pollution in per capita terms, which is the most important measure. And also, they're the leading force in reducing their emissions by investing in real renewable energy and attempting to build a political and economic climate worldwide where not only is everyone else up to speed, but then they can go farther. Because what we sometimes forget is that in terms of the global economy, the United States is still the hegemon worldwide. The European world attempts to be the hegemon alongside the United States. And they're the principal force trying to squeeze China and squeeze all states that seek to take a different path and destroy them ultimately. And that creates a very difficult environment for a country of 1.4 billion people to develop in a way where, one, economic needs can be met, and two, the environmental needs can be met. It's a very hard balancing act when you're talking about economic and military warfare at your doorstep all of the time for the last 70 years. That's something that people, I think, need to have a little more empathy toward, especially here in the United States and the West, where we are the epicenter of imperialism.
Yeah, so they've developed a system that's taken people out of poverty like no other system in the history of the world. But I still think you should be censored for saying things nice about China. I'm all for it. We should shut down Danny Haiphong's pro-China talk.
Oh, people are losing it.
Are they?
Yes.
People are going nuts, Danny.
Yeah.
People are going crazy at this bullshit.
I don't want to hear this about China.
Fuck China. I want to be able to Google. So, you know what, Danny? We should come on and do...
Okay, so that's pretty infuriating. So before we hop into some of this ranting here, let's just go ahead and play a clip from the Telegraph. China's human rights record in 60 seconds. This was made in 2015, guys. 2015. So I'm sure all of the bad things they've done since then has been totally erased and corrected, right? Okay, let's go. So, what, you're going to tell me that all that was made up by the Telegraph? All of that was made up by the Telegraph? Every single one of that? Tiananmen Square didn't happen? Riots in Hong Kong aren't happening? You know what I mean? They didn't lock people in their buildings whenever the coronavirus hit and Wuhan? Are you telling me that's what's happening? Are they not? Let's watch it. Watch Black. Uh-oh. What is this? I don't want to print nothing. Watch. Okay. Black people kicked out of China. Just one search, guys. One search. There's Al Jazeera. We don't have to watch Al Jazeera, but go anywhere.
On April 8th, a large number of African people in the southern Chinese city Guangzhou were driven out by their landlords and had to stay on the streets. Another video shows many Africans dragging their luggage aimlessly through the streets of Guangzhou. One of them says, "We are just walking on the road. They can't give us a house. They can't give us a hotel, and they cannot provide a."
And this is This is a Chinese-run state propaganda show, and they're showing you that they're kicking black people out. It's just too much. It's too much. And for this guy to pretend as if China is, look, I'm not saying that America is better than China. I'm not saying that China is better than America. But if you're going to sit here and just ignore all of the atrocities that China has done and say, oh well, they've looked out for some of their poor people once or twice, that doesn't absolve them of everything they've ever freaking done. What are you? This dude is and their whole premise for this is that well, Danny Haiphong's been to China. He's been to China, so therefore, everything he says about how China, has been totally just blackmailed into American people believing that China's such a bad place. Oh, that's all wrong. That's all completely false. China's a great place to live. Well, how about this? How about if you're a Uyghur? Go live in China. Let's see if that's. Let's say you're a Tibetan monk. Go live in China. See what happens. Let's say you're whatever religion you are, let's say you go there, you know what I mean, and try to gain political power. So you see what happens. Try to join that third party and try to push for being president. Actually get some real. See what happens. Foreigners are watch crazy. What is your social credit score, Danny Haiphong? What is your social credit score, bro? I mean, they're so progressive though. What happens if you speak too bad about the Chinese government? Well, your social credit score goes down, and that's real progressive, isn't it? You fucking idiot, man. Let's read some of these comments. I need to calm down here. It says, what does the spirit of Ho mean, which is his Twitter name? Ho Chi Minh, I bet. This guy's not helping the right-wing straw man on the left. No, Jimmy, I enjoy being able to have a show like yours. Well, true that, but he's definitely gaslighting American people, just allowing this to go on with all of this nonsense. No homos in China. Oh, so the beautification program is working well, I see. What are the other political parties? That would be a good question to ask, wouldn't it? Yeah, didn't get any ask at that. He said it all. The state is a command of society. Oh, man. Oh, the state answers to the people, he says. Oh, my goodness. Go to China, never come back. It's always greener on the other side of the fence. Do they censor people? Well, China is still a developing nation. Good try, kid. How about answering a question every now and then? So there is homelessness in China. I've been there and have had interactions with them. That's straight lies. What the fuck? Oh, 2005. Iraq had multiple parties too. Saddam's Ba'ath Party was also the vanguard, which won 99.99% of the people's vote on every election. And the losing sides, well, they went to jail. No, but I mean, in China, they don't put them in jail, though, because they want to seem like they have people have a choice, right? So we're not going to put them in jail. They're just never going to win. Whoa. I was with him until he got to the homeless. There are homeless in China. I lived there and been there 3 times. Oh, man. And I'm not against, hearing other people out, alternative points, but Jimmy Dore didn't push back on any of it. He just bowed his head and said, yeah, I think you're right. China's so great. It takes you literally putting your head in the sand and ignoring all of the stuff that's been out about China to believe anything that he's saying is, oh my God. So what? What if they actually do help their people? What constitutes their people? They're not helping black people. They're not helping the Uyghurs. They don't help, religious minorities. They're helping, people who are favorable to the Chinese party, which is the vast majority of people there, because god dang, if you step out of line, you end up like Hong Kong. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let's put a camera on the highways every 5 miles taking hundreds of pictures of you so they know where you are. And I have one ruling party you aren't allowed to criticize ever, or your social credit score goes down and you have become shunned so you don't harm other people score and build entire cities for no reason that no one lives in, all the while committing genocides. I bet this dude thinks Stalin's Soviet Union was awesome. Oh, and what about the part where he says China's leading and fighting climate change? They literally have cities full of smog. They're making new coal plants like crazy. And even Jimmy asked him about that, and just like, but when they said they're creating, well, that's just because people don't understand what's really going on. They asked the UN if they could do stuff about climate change, but they don't. Wait, you start with your own backyard, right? This takes the most basic recursory research to understand that China is not progressive by any means, and not to say that having a 100% progressive society would be a good thing anyways. You want to have dissent. You want to have people, you want to have dissent. You want to have people from different viewpoints, because, you know, his idea and his idea can come together to make a new idea. If you only have one pool of ideas from the same sect of people, you're not going to get any different ideas. There's not going to be any difference of opinion. There's not going to be any conflict with which solutions arise from said conflict. It's always going to be, government says this, you do this. Oh, well, look, everything works great. Yeah, because they do what the government says. If they don't, they die. They die. It's like, whoa, okay, dude. Any sweatshops? Yeah, they didn't put nets around buildings to stop, you know, overworked workers from, you know, killing themselves, committing suicide. Yeah, they wouldn't. Let's not give them therapy. Let's put nets around the buildings. China worships money just like the U.S. even more, and there is a clear caste system. Censorship is rampant. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my God. I live in Beijing. 2 years of summer for my job. It is miserable, repressive, oppressive place. We do not want to be more like China. Complete investment in renewable energy. China plans to open up 200 coal-fired plants this year. Oh, what a load of BS, Jimmy. This dude is straight up lying. I never comment, and maybe he'll bring this up, but I'm only 4 minutes in. But when he says everyone, does that include the Uyghurs? Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Jimmy, please read some history before interviewing one-side propagandists. You just sit there and absorb BS without any fruitful questions. That is 100% true. Jimmy Dore, you constantly want to bitch about American politics, gaslighting the American people. You just allowed him on, which is no problem. You know, if there's a Chinese propagandist who even wants to come on my channel and talk to me about it, guess what? You're more than welcome to. I want people to understand your bullshit, and I want myself to be able to call out said bullshit. You know what I mean? And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and it'll be apparent. You know what I'm saying? It'll be apparent in interviews, right? Oh, man. So this guy has a smirk through the entire thing. And a lot of times I like what Danny Haiphong has to say, but this time I don't know if he's getting paid by China or what. I don't want to throw away any allegations. I don't want to be a conspiracist, you know what I'm saying? But something's up here. Something's not right. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that America's any better, but we don't have Tiananmen squares. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that. We just don't have that. We don't have that. You know what I mean? Like the worst happened was like in Ferguson and like some of the Wall Street riots and stuff like that. And the worst that happened was some of the people got tear gassed. You know, that's some of the worst stuff that happened. And then what that do? That caused more protesters to come out. So the government ended up kind of caving. You know what I'm saying? That's what freedom is. That's what freedom is when the people take the power themselves. The people can't take power in China. They'll just be shot. Look, there's literally people being murdered in Hong Kong for protesting for their freedoms. So, and I'm not, oh my God, there's going to be some people who's like, you just don't understand it, and communism and socialism, and stop, and just stop. Don't make excuses for this kind of bullshit. That's what it is bullshit. I just showed you black people being arrested and evicted in China. I just showed you, a 60-second clip of a long history of oppressiveness. You know what I'm saying? So, and America hasn't seen levels of that sort of oppression since slavery. All right, since slavery. Okay, we don't have concentration camps full of Uyghurs. We just don't. You just don't. You know how we don't? Because you're allowed to go in America anywhere you want to go. You're allowed to go hiking anywhere you want to go. If there's, unless it's a cordoned off military base, you know what I'm saying? But guess what? If there was concentration camps, we'd have satellite imagery of that, and somebody would take pictures because it's a free and open society for the most part. You know, there are definitely some things, and we are working on that as a society. But to sit there and say that China is more progressive than America, you're a fucking idiot, Danny Fong. And I love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and Jimmy, come on, dude. Don't allow that shit. Come on, bro.